Rainy day delivery. The rain was a relentless drummer against the bay window, a morbid percussion that matched the thrumming ache in Eleanor's chest. Tuesday mornings were always the worst. The echoes of weekend laughter had faded, leaving a hollow silence in their wake. She pulled the silk duvet tighter, the cool fabric a poor substitute for a warm embrace. Her grocery delivery was scheduled for 10, a small beacon of activity in the gray expanse of the day. Liam hummed along to the radio, wipers battling the deluge. The windscreen was a blurred canvas of headlights and distorted reflections. He navigated the narrow, cobbled streets of the old town with practiced ease, the van swaying slightly under the weight of its cargo. Mrs. Gable's order was near the top of the list: organic kale, imported cheese, and a particularly expensive bottle of Bordeaux. He always smiled when he saw her name. She was the sharpest, wittiest customer he had, even if her barbs sometimes stung. He appreciated the challenge. He pulled up outside her elegant townhouse, the brick facade softened by climbing ivy. He killed the engine, the sudden silence amplifying the drumming rain. He grabbed Mrs. Gable's 2 bags, balancing them carefully, and hopped out, the cold rain instantly plastering his hair to his forehead. Eleanor watched him from the window, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. He looked like a drowned puppy, but somehow, even soaked to the bone, he radiated warmth. She straightened her back, smoothing down the emerald green dress she'd chosen for no particular reason. The doorbell chimed, a cheerful sound that cut through the gloom. She took a deep breath and opened the door. "Good morning, Mrs. Gable," Liam said, his smile wide and genuine. "Terrible weather, isn't it?" He shifted the bags, water dripping from his jacket. "Liam," Eleanor replied, her voice a little breathy. "You look like you've been swimming. Come in, come in. You'll catch your death." She stepped aside, gesturing him into the hallway. He hesitated, dripping on her immaculate Persian rug. "Are you sure? I don't want to make a mess." "Nonsense," she said, her tone firm but her eyes twinkling. "A little water never hurt anyone. Besides, I'll have you know this rug has survived worse." She paused. "Like the time my great-aunt Mildred spilled an entire bottle of port on it during a particularly spirited game of charades. Now stop dithering and bring those groceries in." He chuckled, stepping inside. He placed the bags on the kitchen counter, the scent of expensive cheese mingling with the damp wool of his jacket. "Thank you, Liam," Eleanor said, her voice softening. "I appreciate you braving the elements." "It's no problem at all," he said, turning to face her. "Besides, a bit of rain never scared me." He grinned, running a hand through his wet hair, sending droplets flying. Eleanor couldn't help but smile back. "You're a good man, Liam O'Connell. Now why don't you let me get you a towel before you turn into an icicle?" She gestured towards the pantry. "There should be some clean ones in there." He gratefully accepted the towel, rubbing it vigorously over his head. "Thanks, Mrs. Gable. You're a lifesaver." "Eleanor," she corrected, a hint of pink coloring her cheeks. "Please call me Eleanor." He paused, towel in hand, his eyes meeting hers. The rain continued its relentless assault on the windows, creating a cozy intimacy within the kitchen. "Eleanor," he repeated, the name sounding different somehow on his lips. "It suits you." "Helping hands?" The cardboard groaned in protest as Eleanor wrestled the box closer to the kitchen counter. "Canned goods?" Why had she ordered so many? Her back twinged, a sharp, unwelcome reminder of her age. She hissed, setting the box down with a thump that rattled the few dishes she owned. "Need a hand with that, ma'am?" Liam's voice, warm and laced with a hint of a brogue, startled her. He was still standing on the porch, his delivery scanner tucked under his arm. "Oh no, I'm fine," she lied, already regretting the words as another stab of pain shot through her lower back. Liam didn't look convinced. He hopped up the porch steps, his smile widening. "Nonsense. I've got muscles for a reason. Besides," he winked, "company policy. We aim to please." Before she could protest, he'd hefted the box with ease, placing it squarely on the counter. "Where do you want all this artillery?" he asked, gesturing to the cans with a playful grin. Eleanor, flustered but secretly relieved, pointed to the pantry. Just in there. Anywhere's fine, really. Liam started unpacking, whistling a jaunty tune. So, how's your day been? Anything exciting happen? Besides the arrival of your favorite delivery guy, of course. Eleanor chuckled, the sound a little rusty from disuse. Not much, I'm afraid. A bit of gardening, some reading. The usual. Ah, the quiet life. I had a lady today who tried to pay me in homemade cookies. Chocolate chip, no less. Nearly gave in, but regulations, you know. Said her cat, Mr. Fluffernutter, needed them more. He winked. I suspect Mr. Fluffernutter is a very spoiled feline. Eleanor found herself smiling, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. I can imagine. He pulled out a can of diced tomatoes. These remind me of Mrs. Henderson on Elm Street. Makes the best chili in the whole county, she claims. Uses a secret ingredient. I suspect it's love, but don't tell her I said that. The cans were soon neatly stacked, Liam's stories filling the quiet kitchen. He told her about the dog that chased his truck every Tuesday, the old man who always had a joke ready, the kids who would wave from their windows. Ordinary stories, but somehow, through Liam's telling, they became little gems. As he finished, he turned to her, his eyes crinkling at the corners. All done. Anything else I can help you with, Eleanor? He'd used her first name so naturally, it sent a surprising little flutter through her. Actually, she said, a sudden thought striking her. Would you like a glass of iced tea? It's nothing fancy, but... I love that, he said, his smile genuine. Thank you. Sweet teasing. Liam hefted the last bag of groceries onto the kitchen counter, the plastic crinkling softly in the sudden quiet. The rhythmic drumming of the rain against the windows had softened to a gentle whisper. He turned to Eleanor, a smile playing on his lips, and gestured toward a towering stack of chocolate bars. Someone's got a serious sweet tooth, he said, his eyes twinkling with amusement. I hope you're planning on sharing those. Eleanor felt a warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she hadn't experienced in what felt like a very long time. Maybe, she replied, feigning a stern expression. If you're lucky. And if you promise not to tell anyone my secrets. She paused, then couldn't resist adding, though, I suppose a few squares might loosen your tongue. Liam chuckled, running a hand through his already disheveled hair. The rain had definitely taken its toll. Bribery, eh? I'm not easily bought, Mrs. Gable. Eleanor. She corrected him, a playful glint in her eyes. She tilted her head, studying him for a moment. And speaking of secrets, you seem to have a few of your own. Namely, what exactly happened to your hair on the way here? Did you wrestle a badger? Liam's hand flew to his head again, attempting to smooth down the unruly strands that seemed to defy gravity. Badger would have been an improvement. It was more like a hurricane. A chocolate-craving hurricane, apparently. Eleanor laughed, a genuine, hearty laugh that filled the kitchen and made the corners of her eyes crinkle. It was a sound she hadn't realized she'd been missing. Well, I appreciate you braving the storm for my necessities. She gestured towards the chocolate again. My pleasure, Liam said, his voice suddenly a little softer. He met her gaze, and for a moment, the teasing faded, replaced by something warmer, something more. Eleanor felt a familiar flutter in her stomach, a feeling she hadn't felt since Edward. She quickly looked away, busying herself with unpacking a bag of oranges. Where do you want these? She asked, her voice slightly breathless. Liam seemed to shake himself out of whatever reverie he'd been in. Oh, the fruit bowl on the counter is fine. He watched her for a moment, his expression unreadable. So, all this chocolate, baking something special? Eleanor shook her head. Just comfort. It's been a long week. She didn't elaborate, but Liam seemed to understand. Well, he said, stepping back slightly. I should probably get going. Got a few more deliveries to make before the rain gets any worse. Thank you, Liam, Eleanor said, meeting his eyes again. This time, She held the gaze a little longer. For everything. Any time, Eleanor. He gave her one last smile, a smile that lingered in the air long after he was gone. Echoes of the past. Liam wrestled the last grocery bag onto the kitchen counter, a rogue apple threatening to roll free. Almost there, he said, riding the fruit before it could escape. He caught his breath, noticing the room properly for the first time. Sunlight streamed through the lace-curtained window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. It was a cozy room, filled with antique furniture and the comforting scent of lavender. And then he saw it. On the mantelpiece, nestled between porcelain figurines and faded portraits, was a photograph. A young woman, impossibly graceful, stood poised in a ballet stance, her face alight with passion. It was Eleanor, but a version of her he couldn't quite reconcile with the woman he knew. This Eleanor radiated an energy, a vibrant spark that seemed to have been dimmed by time. "That's you," he stated, more a question than an observation, pointing towards the photograph. Eleanor followed his gaze, a faint blush rising on her cheeks. "A lifetime ago," she murmured, her voice tinged with a wistful sadness. "Before the aches and pains, before. Well, before." "You were a dancer?" Liam asked, genuinely surprised. The image of her in a tutu seemed so incongruous with the Eleanor he'd come to know. "Professional, actually," she replied, a hint of pride creeping into her voice. "Ballet was my whole world. I trained rigorously, auditioned constantly, lived and breathed it." She paused, her fingers tracing the outline of the photograph. "It feels like a dream now." "What happened?" Liam asked, unable to resist his curiosity. He leaned against the counter, giving her his full attention. Eleanor sighed, a soft, rustling sound. "Life, I suppose. I met my husband, Thomas. He was a wonderful man, so supportive. He adored watching me dance, even though he couldn't tell a plie from a pirouette." She smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that momentarily erased the years from her face. "He traveled with me, encouraged me, celebrated every small victory." "So you stopped dancing because of him?" Liam asked gently. "Not exactly. I danced for several years after we married. But then..." Her voice trailed off, and a shadow crossed her face. "I had a knee injury. A bad one. The doctor said I could recover, but I would never be the same. Thomas was worried, of course. He didn't want me pushing myself too hard. And, well, I started to think about other things. Building a home, a life with him, away from the constant pressure of the stage." She looked away, her gaze lost in the sunlit dust motes. "It was a difficult decision, but I don't regret it. Thomas gave me a life filled with love and laughter. But sometimes," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper, "sometimes I miss the feel of the music, the weightlessness of the leap, the sheer exhilaration of performance. It's a part of me that never truly faded." Liam was silent for a moment, absorbing her story. He saw a vulnerability in her eyes, a longing for something lost. He wanted to reach out, to offer comfort, but he wasn't sure how. "Thank you for sharing that with me," he said finally, his voice soft and sincere. "I had no idea. Lights out." "Right, the milk goes in, oh." Eleanor's words were cut short as the overhead fluorescent light flickered violently, buzzing like an angry hornet caught in a jar. Liam turned from the counter, a carton of eggs still in his hand. The light sputtered once more, casting elongated, dancing shadows across the kitchen, and then died completely, plunging them into near darkness. "Well, that's just brilliant," Eleanor muttered, more to herself than to Liam. Her hand instinctively went to the useless light switch, flipping it on and off with futile determination. "Power outage, looks like," Liam said, his voice calm and reassuring in the sudden gloom. "Happens sometimes. Don't worry, I'm sure it'll be back on soon." He carefully placed the carton of eggs on the counter. "Got any candles around?" Eleanor sighed. "Somewhere. I haven't used them in ages. Probably buried in a drawer." She shuffled towards a bank of cabinets, her hand outstretched, feeling her way along the cool, painted wood. Let's see, maybe the junk drawer? Liam followed her, his movements surprisingly graceful in the low light. I'll check over here. He opened a drawer near the stove, rummaging through its contents. Lots of spatulas, wooden spoons, bingo! Birthday candles. Not much help though. Eleanor chuckled, a small, nervous sound. Keep looking. There should be some proper ones. And a lighter. Probably lost a lighter too. She pulled open the junk drawer, a chaotic jumble of odds and ends. Pens, rubber bands, old keys, instruction manuals she never read, and a tangled mess of string. This is quite the treasure trove, Liam said, his voice amused. He continued his search, his fingers carefully sifting through the contents of his drawer. Got it! Found a box of tea lights. And a lighter! Looks like your lucky day, Eleanor. He struck the flint. A small, flickering flame illuminated his face, highlighting the warmth in his eyes. Eleanor felt a strange flutter in her chest. Good work, detective, she said, her voice softer than she intended. She found a small ceramic candle holder shaped like a robin and placed it on the kitchen table. Liam carefully placed a tea light inside and lit it. The single candle cast long, dancing shadows on the walls, transforming the familiar kitchen into something mysterious and intimate. The sharp edges of the countertops seemed to soften, and the air felt warmer, heavier somehow. The silence, broken only by the gentle crackle of the candle flame, was suddenly charged with an unspoken energy. Liam placed another tea light on the windowsill, chasing away more of the darkness. The faint glow illuminated the delicate wrinkles around Eleanor's eyes, but instead of making her look older, it seemed to soften her features, giving her a youthful glow. Better, she said, taking a seat at the table. Much better. I hate the dark. Liam leaned against the counter, watching her. Me too, he said quietly. Although, sometimes the darkness can be revealing. His gaze lingered on her for a moment, and Eleanor felt a blush rise to her cheeks. Shared stories. Let me, Liam said, gesturing towards the overflowing grocery bags. Let me cook tonight. A small thank you for the tea. Eleanor blinked, surprised. You cook? He grinned. Does a bear. Well, you get the idea. I'm no Michelin star chef, but I can whip up something edible. Besides, he lowered his voice conspiratorially, those tomatoes look like they're begging to become pasta sauce. Eleanor hesitated, then a smile played on her lips. All right, Liam O'Connell. You're on. But I'm watching you. The kitchen, usually a silent, echoing space, filled with the cheerful clatter of Liam preparing dinner. He moved with surprising grace, chopping vegetables with a practiced hand, humming a tuneless melody. Eleanor sat at the kitchen table, observing him, the scent of garlic and herbs filling the air. It was a symphony of life she hadn't heard in years. So, Liam said without turning around, tell me about Eleanor Gable. Besides the fact that she makes a mean cup of tea. Eleanor chuckled. There's not much to tell. Lived here my whole life. Married the best man in the world. He's gone now. And... She trailed off, the smile fading. Liam turned, his expression softening. And it's just quiet. Too quiet. He filled this house with so much laughter. Now it just echoes. She looked down at her hands, tracing the lines etched into her skin. 63 years is a long time to build a life with someone, and then suddenly, they're not there anymore. Liam turned off the stove, the sudden silence amplifying the weight of her words. He walked over and gently placed a hand over hers. I can't imagine, he said softly. Losing someone like that, it must be unbearable. Eleanor looked up, her eyes glistening. It is. Some days I feel like I'm just going through the motions. The world keeps spinning, but I'm stuck in one place. Liam squeezed her hand. Well, maybe tonight we can spin together. Even just for a little while. He pulled his hand away and returned to the stove. Now about me, there's even less to tell. I drive a delivery van, I live in a tiny apartment above a laundromat, and I eat way too much takeout. He stirred the sauce with vigor. Eleanor watched him, intrigued. There has to be more than that, Liam. He sighed, running a hand through his already disheveled hair. There isn't, really. I work all the time. Trying to save up for, well, something. I don't even know what anymore. And meeting people, real people, it's hard. Everyone's so busy, so focused on their own lives. Genuine connection feels like a luxury these days. He ladled the pasta onto 2 plates, handing one to Eleanor. Pasta perfection is not something I can achieve, he said with a wry smile. But I did my best. They ate in comfortable silence, the shared meal a small act of rebellion against the loneliness that had been her constant companion. As they ate, Eleanor felt a warmth spreading through her, a feeling she hadn't experienced in years. It wasn't just the delicious pasta. It was the simple act of sharing a meal, of connecting with another human being. And maybe, just maybe, it was something more. A simple dance. The kitchen swam with the heady fragrance of garlic and simmering herbs. Liam, a low hum resonating within him, stirred the sauce. Eleanor watched from the table, a faint smile gracing her lips. That's quite a sauce you've conjured, Liam, she murmured, her voice unusually gentle. Years in the trenches, he quipped, a wink punctuating the air. Survive in my family? You learn to cook or you become the cooked. He paused, noticing her. You possess a certain radiance this evening. Perhaps, she conceded. Your presence offers a welcome departure. He killed the heat beneath the sauce. Diversions are essential, I grant you. But hopefully it transcends mere escapism. After a moment's deliberation, he retrieved his phone. Something I'm eager to share. He selected a lively tune, a jubilant jig with a prominent fiddle. The small kitchen vibrated with its infectious energy. Eleanor tilted her head, a silent question in her eyes. What's this then? A whisper from home, he offered. A touch of Blarney. He extended a hand. Come. I've a notion to show you something. Her gaze lingered on his outstretched hand, then lifted to meet his. The warmth emanating from his eyes stole a little breath from her lungs. She accepted his hand, their fingers twining together. His touch was firm, work-worn yet surprisingly tender. He guided her to the patch of open floor before the stove. A simple step. From my childhood. A staple at every ceilidh. Positioning her to face him, he explained. It's a step-ball change. Watch. He demonstrated, his feet surprisingly nimble. She followed his movements intently, a slight frown in her brow. Step-ball change? She echoed, attempting to mirror his actions. She faltered, nearly losing her footing. Liam steadied her, his hands finding purchase on her waist. Easy now. Just feel the music. Step-ball change. He repeated the step, slower this time, his hands remaining a gentle anchor. She tried again, managing a tentative, wavering version. A ripple of laughter escaped her. Utterly hopeless, I am. Nonsense, he countered, his voice dropping a register, his gaze locked on hers. You're doing splendidly. Just breathe. He began to move with her, guiding her gently, his hands a light frame on her waist. The nearness sent a flutter through her chest. The steps blurred, her focus drawn instead to the sensation of his touch, the subtle heat radiating from his body. Soon they were both breathless and giggling. I believe I require a chair, she gasped, leaning against the cool countertop. Liam grinned. Consider yourself inducted into the O'Connell School of Dance. He silenced the music. The ensuing silence felt thick, charged with unspoken words. Eleanor met his gaze, her eyes luminous. Thank you, Liam, she whispered. For everything. The innocent dance had achieved more than simply dispelling the quiet. It had carved a tiny fissure in the wall surrounding her heart, allowing a sliver of light to penetrate. Breaking the spell. Rosemary and garlic still perfumed the air, laced with a delicate whisper of Eleanor's fragrance. Liam leaned back, finding unexpected comfort in the aged wooden chair. He'd been recounting his sourdough disaster, and her laughter, a melodious, heartfelt sound, had filled a void he hadn't even acknowledged. Candlelight flickered on the walls, painting elongated, whimsical shadows, a dance mirroring the unspoken currents between them. Then, the rude awakening. His phone, vibrating urgently on the counter, shattered the delicate atmosphere. The screen glared. O'Connell's organic. A pang of guilt struck him. Time had completely slipped away. I should probably. He began, his voice trailing off as he answered. Liam? Where are you? Mrs. Henderson's been holding out for her kale and kombucha. She's threatening a call to corporate. His manager's voice, clipped and impatient, sliced through the intimacy of the moment. Right, sorry, Mark. Headed there now. He disconnected, a tight feeling gripping his chest. Tardiness was a personal failing he abhorred. Especially under these circumstances. Eleanor's smile had receded, leaving behind a polite, almost formal, expression. Work, she stated, her tone carefully measured. Yeah, sorry. I completely lost myself. He gestured toward the cleared plates, feeling utterly inept. He should have been more mindful. He was just a delivery guy, not some Prince Charming. He rose, the chair protesting with a drawn-out scrape, the sound amplified by the sudden silence. Gathering his belongings, his jacket, the worn messenger bag, he felt the ease of the past hours evaporate, replaced by an oppressive awkwardness. He avoided her gaze, concentrating on fastening his coat. Thank you, Liam, she offered softly. For the company. He finally met her eyes. They held a trace of sadness, a hint of knowing. Thank you, Eleanor. It was good. A pathetic understatement, he knew. It had been far more than merely good. It had been something transformative. He moved towards the door, his hand hovering over the cold metal of the knob. He longed to say something, anything, to bridge the burgeoning chasm. To somehow resurrect the enchantment, if only for a fleeting instant. But the words remained trapped. Drive carefully, she murmured, almost inaudibly. He nodded, managing a strained smile. I will. He opened the door, a rush of cool night air offering a sharp contrast to the warmth he was abandoning. He stepped onto the porch, the swing set squeaking rhythmically in the breeze. He glanced back one final time. Eleanor stood framed in the doorway, a silhouette against the golden light spilling from within, her expression an enigma. He offered a meager wave, then turned and headed towards his van, the weight of the dissolved evening pressing down on him. The magic had dissipated, and he questioned whether it could ever be conjured again. Pie and promises. The ghosts of rosemary and garlic still danced in the air as Eleanor began to tidy up. Liam, with instinctive courtesy, gathered the plates. Thank you, Liam. Dinner was unexpectedly delightful. A grin brightened his face, a sudden flash against his faintly ruddy complexion. My pleasure, Eleanor. It's been ages since I've cooked for anyone but myself. A comfortable quiet descended, punctuated only by the gentle music of silverware against china. Eleanor hesitated, wanting to prolong the evening's spell. She hadn't felt this vibrant, this present, in what seemed like an eternity. The silence deepened, becoming almost tangible, a soft weight on her shoulders. She started, then faltered, seized by sudden uncertainty. This hadn't been part of her plan. The words felt spontaneous, almost daring. I baked an apple pie earlier. Would you care for a piece? Liam stilled, his hands laden with dishes. His eyes, an arresting shade of blue, locked onto hers. She couldn't decipher his expression, but the kitchen seemed to hum with a silent current. Apple pie? He finally asked, a slow smile unfurling. All your own work? Eleanor nodded, feeling warmth bloom in her cheeks. Yes. All my own work. If you have time, of course. For homemade apple pie. I can always find the time. She turned to the task of slicing the pie, the fragrant warmth of cinnamon and apples filling the room. The crust, a rustic golden brown, bore testament to her less-than-perfect technique. She placed a generous portion on a plate and offered it to Liam. He tasted it, his eyes closing for a fleeting moment. "Eleanor," he murmured, his voice a low rumble. "This is absolutely wonderful." They sat together, sharing the dessert in companionable stillness. The delicate clink of forks was the sole sound. Eleanor found herself drawn to watching Liam, the slight crease in his brow as he savored each bite, the subtle upturn of his lips. A warmth expanded in her chest, a feeling dormant since Robert. "So," Liam began, breaking the quiet spell. "Aside from being a horticultural wizard and a pie-baking marvel, how do you fill your days?" Eleanor chuckled softly. "Marvel is a bit strong. Mostly I read. And tend to my roses. And contemplate." "Contemplate what?" She paused, considering. "Things. Life. The past, primarily. The future, occasionally." He nodded thoughtfully. "The past can be a persistent companion, can it?" His gaze met hers, filled with understanding. "But the future remains a blank canvas." An electric charge seemed to spark between them. Eleanor averted her eyes, suddenly self-conscious. She cleared her throat. "More pie." He laughed, a rich, genuine sound that filled the kitchen. "I really shouldn't. But yes, please." As she served him another sliver, their fingers brushed, sending a quick silver shock up her arm. She drew back quickly, her pulse quickening. As Liam prepared to leave, the twilight deepened outside. He captured her hand, his touch sending a fresh tremor through her. "Thank you, Eleanor. For dinner, for the pie, for the excellent company. Thank you, Liam. For everything." He lingered at the door, his blue eyes searching hers. "I should probably let you get some rest. But I'd very much like to see you again, Eleanor. Soon." A subtle smile graced her lips. "I would like that a great deal, Liam." He gave her hand a gentle squeeze before releasing it. "Good night, Eleanor." "Good night, Liam." She watched him as he walked away, the soft glow of the porch light illuminating his dark hair. He turned at the gate, offering a final wave before vanishing into the darkness. Eleanor shut the door, leaning against it for a heartbeat. The house felt different, imbued with a newfound warmth. The aroma of apple pie lingered, mingling with the faint remnants of rosemary and garlic. A genuine smile bloomed on her face, filled with a quiet hope. The future, it appeared, was no longer an empty void. It offered the promise of apple pie and, perhaps, something infinitely more.